enough to have Curlee Raven Holton as another guest. So I'm going to start with Michael. Over the 22 years that we've been together, and I've been fortunate enough to find collectors for your work, one of the things you talk about is it's not what you put in, it's what you leave out. So talk about that, since most people still think that your work is photographs and not drawings.
Right. Three things that I'll probably mention. The first thing is that you can overwork a piece. You can overdo something. And when I'm working, I'm always cognizant of the choices that I'm making, right? So I think one of the choices that often gets overlooked is choosing to leave things out. And by choosing to leave aspects out, even details out, it helps me tell the story in a greater way. And so those choices of what not to put in to a drawing is just as important, in my opinion, as choices to put something in a drawing.
Have you already made those choices when you sit down with that blank sheet of paper?
Yes and no. From a compositional point of view, yes. But as I work through drawings and as things develop, I make further decisions as I go. So it's like editing, right? You got to edit yourself. And as artists, I think, one of the real important decisions that we're making is, our choices. We have to be, at least I think we have to be very cognizant of our choices. And in making those choices, you're supposed to be making choices that will help enhance what it is that you're trying to communicate. So that's one of the reasons why I say the choice to leave something out is as important as the choice to put something in.
As I've gotten to know you better over the years, it's made increasingly more sense. I wasn't sure in the beginning when we first talked about it.
And you can get granular with those choices, and you could step all the way back with those choices. There's a whole range of choices that you're going to make as an artist, even, as far as compositional choices. All of those things matter.
The last few years, you've added more color into your work. Are you as comfortable with a paintbrush as you are with a pencil?
I am, but I was mentioning it to someone earlier. I think it was you, Mom, and that I've made the artistic choice to make music with only a certain amount of keys, with the black keys. Right? I can use all the other notes, but I find it a lot more challenging and a lot more fun to limit myself as an artist and to try to communicate the full range of emotion, the full range of what it is that I'm trying to communicate with the black keys, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
How much do you work off of photographs rather than just out of pure memory?
It's a little bit of both. There's a little bit of both.
Do you prefer one over the other?
Not really, no. I just prefer whatever works. I prefer whatever works. There are instances where I can have models and I'll see somebody, it's like, oh, I got it, right? And there are instances where that doesn't exist. So I'll just have somebody pose and I'll fill the rest in. And I'll, oh, that's a neat belt. I like that belt, and I like this, and I like this, and I'll pull it in.
Do you know when you start how you're going to, which areas are going to be gray as opposed to what you're leaving white?
Usually, or at least I have an idea of where I'm going when I start, and I have an idea in my head of where I'm going. There are many instances along the way where I make a different decision along the way, and it doesn't end up that way. So I'm very open to the organic nature of what we do. So sometimes my idea that I start off with, I get into the drawing and I realize, actually, this is a better idea, or this is going to work better, and so I'm moving that direction. So I never really, I start off with a destination point. I know I'm going south, but I don't really know where I'm going to end up, whether I'm going to end up in Miami or whether I'm going to end up in Fort Lauderdale, but I know I'm going south.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so that brings up my next question. And this is for both of you.
Yep.
How do you know when a piece is finished?
For me, it's intuitive. It's an intuitive feeling.
Yeah.
I rely on that a great deal in my practice. My sense of things, not just what might be perceived by someone looking at it or the world around me, but how I'm reading it. And again, an intuitive sense of that. I don't have to have anything that is completely finished, because my work for me is a metaphor for how life is unfinished and incomplete. So I don't have to have that happen. So a lot of my work is very open, imprecise, because I think we are imprecise. So I'm very comfortable with that kind of ambiguity in the work. You know, I wrestle with that a bit, but I'm very comfortable with that. With Michael's work, for example, and again, I just want to say that the work is phenomenal. It's phenomenal for me for a number of reasons. One, it betrays the notion that we have of what an image is when we look at it. When you look at it, you say, oh, this is precision, almost photographic, but it is not. So it betrays that impulse to want this to be a replica or a photograph, but it is not. It is made by hand. So you have to then imagine, how could someone invest so much energy in a work that betrays the photographic quality of an image? That's where I think part of the power lies. And there's another sort of element of power in his work. Is I often think about why artists make work, period, why we make this stuff. Because we're all over the place. We're like roaches. We're everywhere. But why do we do it? And I've come to a conclusion that I think is a universal answer to the question. We do it because we want to recover a sense of innocence. Now, when a child draws early on, and you have children, when they draw and we look at this, it's so innocent. It doesn't have to be precise, but it's innocent. They're reacting to the world around them. And I believe that artists want to recover that sense of innocence. I think all humans want to recover innocence in their lives. And we spend a lot of time struggling with the fact that it is not present. What I mean by innocence, a sense of authenticity, a sense of true self, a self that is not compromised, a self that's not negotiated with the rest of the world, a self that doesn't have to surrender to the world. And this begins early. I'll tell you, I have 2 grandchildren that I've adopted. I got a little boy at 3 months old. His mother had been a drug user, and he was addicted to methamphetamines as a newborn child. And I had his sister, who was 5 years old, and we raised him. And you see this little boy, you never imagined that he had these challenges. But I told him a few weeks ago, I said, you know, you really have given me a gift. And they said, well, my granddaughter said, well, what is the gift that we've given you? I said, a gift of innocence. I watched you closely, and I have been able to observe how your actions are so innocent, and then slowly they become conditioned by the world. Whether it's a 9-year-old watching some program with makeup or clothing or fingernails or whatever happens, slowly we lose our innocence. And I think as artists, deep down in our core, we're trying to recover it. So these subjects, I look at them, and this is a desire for that subject to recover and reclaim that sense of innocence and authenticity. And you're the one that's delivering it as artists. That's the delivery system. Now, I don't make work like he makes, but I'm trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
As I'm trying to recover innocence, not just for myself, but reflect in a way so we understand that everyone should seek to do that. And we do it through experiences. We think if we buy the big house on the hill, we'll recover the innocence. If we buy the Lamborghini or the Mercedes, we'll recover the innocence. sometimes we buy a painting. It's a way of getting to a place that we want to get to that we can't get to on our own. So I think the act of making for an artist is almost priest-like. And I believe culture is a religion. It's not just our orthodox and traditional religion, but I think culture is a religion. It is a practice.
Yeah, I think it's very spiritual. And along the way at trying to recover our innocence, what I would say to you is we are then engaged in the expression of our spirit in order to do so.
I agree totally.
Right? And so it's that, I think artists, because of what we practice, we get more in tune and in touch with listening to that spirit, which gives me an answer to your question, is that the piece really tells me when it's done. The piece tells me that, okay, she's done. She's done now. And there'll be times, and I know you'll be able to relate to this, there are times in my studio when I'm working on this, and she's calling me over there, and I got to take this one down and go pick her up. And when I don't, a lot of times this doesn't start to go right. And I should have listened. I got to take it down because I didn't listen to my spirit that said, now's the time to be working on this. You need to just
That's
be
what I
obedient
meant by
to
that intuitive quality. You have a voice that's inside you that is speaking to you, and it's important to listen to that voice, because that voice in most cases is honest, extremely honest. We shut it down most of the times because it can be critical or uncomfortable. But I think that's what speaking is, as you know, when you've communicated the message that you're trying to bring forward into the world through the work of art. And the medium, you know, is a tool, is the voice. But that's not the thing. The thing is what's underneath it, what's driving it. So I think that's extremely powerful.
So Michael, what makes you, I mean, some of these you say are sketches, even though we see them as drawings, and some you consider drawings. What makes you decide this one's just going to be a sketch?
I originally started doing this type of work because it started off as a challenge for myself. Could I take 2 or 3 hours or sit down in one small period of time, partly because, you know, my children were small at the time and needed more time. So I said, okay, well, let me use that as a way to get creative. What can I do in this period of time, right? Talking about limiting myself. Okay, well, let's see what I can do in this period of time. So this is going to be a sketch. I'm not going to, you know, there's a difference between that and the grandmother over there. There's a huge difference, right? That I call it completed drawing. This is a sketch, right? So it's not that the idea is less formulated. It's the execution is looser. And that was my intention from the beginning, because I just gave myself this allotment of time. And there are times where I would go back in and say, well, I want to clean this up. I want to define this area a little bit more. But the idea was, I'm going to limit myself in terms of how much time I'm going to take to spend on a particular piece. So that's kind of what the sort of the demarcating line is between those two.
Speaking of time, do either one of you actually know how long you spend on certain
No, because I got a number of different things I'm working on, and as I said before, it'll be like, oh, he's calling to me today, so I'm going to take this down. I'm going to go over there and work on this. And I might not rotate back to this other one for a month, 2 months. I've had things sit around the studio for years, and I, just, haven't gotten to it. So, and then I see it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember him. Okay, let me put him up. Let me see. I'll just hang it up, or I'll put it on the easel, and let me see what happens to having it in the space, and let me see, and sometimes it stays there, and I take it down and put something else up, or I flip it upside down and let me just see what happens. So it's tough to say, but for me, maybe every few weeks something gets, it depends on the size. Something small every couple of weeks, something larger, more time.
Yeah, in my case, I have multiple things going on at the same time. I may have a painting going on. I may have a woodcut I'm working on, a drawing, But my work, I don't work every day. I sort of have eruptions, so to speak. And it's always sort of been like that. I gather a lot of information, I ruminate on it, chew on it for a while, and then it erupts. So I may go a week or two without touching a piece of work at all.
Really? Wow.
But it's always cooking.
Yeah.
So I've had people ask me, well, Curlee, what, you haven't done anything, especially my assistant. Well, I don't have to, because it's cooking. And when it's time, it's going to erupt. It's going to come forward. So my work comes out of that, because my body is closely connected to my work, you know. What I mean by that, I think art making is a combination of the heart, the body, and the mind. And we could say the heart is also the spirit, but the body and the mind. And so there's a point when it reaches a certain level where it sort of ruptures and comes forward. And I prefer that in my own practice. So I do a lot of work. Don't misunderstand me. I produce a lot of work. But that work is when it's coming, it's intense. But when it's not, I'm reading, I'm relaxing, learning to play the guitar, because I want to change my mind.
Right. You want
what I mean by that, the music is a different place in the mind than the visual art is. But it's very similar because it does use the heart, the mind, and the body. So I like to do things that I'm not good at. So I explained to a dealer recently after an exhibition that I use my left hand almost as much as my right hand, but I'm right-handed. And the reason is because I don't trust my right hand, because it's too easy. Yeah. I like the idea of it not being perfect, you know what I mean? Because I think that's where honesty is in the imperfection, in the struggle, not in that comfort. Because with comfort, we're not confronted by, difficulties. It's only when it's not organized that the truth emerges somehow. So that's how my own personal philosophy plays a part in my work.
It's so funny when there's a group of collectors and your name comes up. Everybody always says printmaker, and I have to remind them you're also. When you were getting ready to retire from the directorship of Driscoll Center, I remember asking you what you were going to do with all this free time, because this was like your third retirement or something, and you said you were going to go back to your first love, which is painting. How do you decide? Michael is more focused on a certain medium, but you're all over the place.
Yeah, I was trained as a painter, and then I moved into drawing because I love the mark making, the drawing, because I think it's autobiographical. I think it's, as I mentioned, it has a certain kind of innocence.
The rawest form of art.
Yeah, it's an innocence in it as well. And the printmaking was a situation that arrived. I was asked to do a print for the NCA in South Africa. Apartheid was still in place, but they were asking artists to do prints to raise money to buy arms. And I was asked, and I made a print. I never made a print before, ever. And I made this print. And this print just went into the Curlee Museum of Art, the one that I did, the first print. So it was an accident, but what it did, it tapped into the sensibility that I had always had as a child that was raised with a high work ethic. Parents that were laborers, their hands, their labor, their dedication to their labor, their honesty about their labor. So we had a high work ethic in my family. And so the labor and the printmaking was so physical, because you're working with equipment and tools and pressure. So I love the mechanics of it. And then the sort of, I haven't decided whether it's magic or alchemy yet. But when the plate goes through that press with a sheet of paper on and comes out on the other end, I haven't decided whether that's magic or alchemy. Alchemy is a transformation of material. Alchemy has an element, magic has an element of mystery and powers outside of our own, so I'm not sure about it yet. But that satisfaction, plus there was something else that was important, it fit my politics. I was raised up in the area of social commentary, the late 1970s. And so making prints about African American experience was important to me. And I had a natural audience. And I've always had this audience. I had a natural audience. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Half the population was African American, half white. I lived originally on the side of town that was predominantly white, in an exclusive little 3-street area of black folks that got off that stop coming from the south for a job. So they got off at the last stop at that train station, and that's where they lived. That's a common story. Later, I moved to the east side, which was predominantly black, and you had people like the Stokes family, Carl Stokes, the first black mayor. All these successful black, powerful black individuals. So that's where I began to have my practice at. So I had an audience that loved my work and supported me ever since I was probably in my mid-20s as an artist because of that community. And I still, we call it the secret weapon. I still have a community of African American collectors that are devoted to that understanding and appreciating that practice. Has sustained me. So I remember getting invited to an organization, the president of the organization stopped into my studio and said, Curlee, we all hear about you. We want you to join our new organization of visual artists. So I went to the meeting. There was 2 African Americans in the audience. All the rest were about 400 artists there. And they were talking about the market in Cleveland. And I realized I had half the market.
Right.
I wasn't interested in trying to share the market with them.
Right.
I had a larger studio than they probably had. I left that meeting without any concern at all, and it always sustained myself. And I still have that relationship.
Now, growing up in Canada, obviously you had less of an audience.
Yeah, it's a different kind of issue.
You know, it's a different issue for me.
Sure.
I had to struggle to find my audience.
Sure.
Right. So, I grew up in a city, London, Ontario, which is halfway between Detroit and Toronto. So, when I was in public school, the whole time that I was in public school, it was 4 black people, 4 black kids. My sister, who's 4 years younger than me, who was the only black male, and then 2 sisters, the Beckles sisters. It's the 4 of us. And so I really struggled. You know, there was a lot of racism and so forth there. But one of the saving graces for me was drawing.
No, I'm sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
Reading and drawing. And so I spent countless hours just drawing. It was something that I learned to love at a very young age. And so I got really proficient at making art. And then as it would have it, the community, that little London community was a hotbed for the arts. And I was able to go to an arts high school. And I think that was probably one of the most important times of my life in terms of building a foundation underneath me. So this was a school where you, grades 9 and 10, you did your academics half a day, and then you did art the other half of the day. Then by the time you got to grade 11, you completed all of your sort of your academic requirements, and then you had art all day, every day. And so we had studios. And so it was a very serious place. We had to apply to get in. You had to send, back in the day, you know, the portfolios. You had to lug your portfolio in. You had to sit down with the head of the department, and he would go over your portfolio right in front of you. And you're either in or you're out. And so I was able to put together a portfolio, and I got in. And so you got a full arts education. You got art history, textiles, 3 different kinds of drawing, painting, sculpture, etching, stone lithography, commercial art at the time, we called it. So we had a very robust arts education, animation, ceramics. I mean, you had to rotate all the way through until you got to grade 12. And then once you got to grade 12, you could specialize. You would pick out an area of specialty that you wanted to focus on. And so I did that. And then, you know, once I got involved with that, I mean, there's really only two things that kept me involved in high school. One was the visual arts department. And the other one was I could put the ball in the basket. I could play basketball. And so I, you know, I thrived, and that was a really important time for me to just understand.
Did you get to see works by black artists then?
No. I remember the moment that I saw, the first time I saw black art was, we had our own library. We had a whole separate building back then where all the art students would do their thing. And we had a library, and on the I still remember this, on the second shelf, you know, there's all kinds of, and by the way, I should tell you, we learned art from the European traditional, how most of us learn, from that European traditional Renaissance standard of art, the way art is delivered from the European perspective. But anyway, there was one book, and it was a compilation of African American art. And I was like, what's this? Pulled that down, and I remember going through it. And it had all of the greats, but my life changed when I saw Charles White in that book.
Yes, I had a similar experience.
My life, when I saw, and it was just a 2-page spread with his picture and 3 or 4 images of his work. And from that moment till now.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you think about that background, there's a choice of making this particular kind of work about building that community around you that was absent. I mean, are these the black folks that should have been there?
No, what it is, I know what you mean.
You created a world.
I've created a world. I think what I was doing early on is I was trying to learn about who I was. And so what does it mean to be black beyond this experience that I'm having now? And so I started to use my art to teach myself about myself, if you will. And then as I matured, I started going back in my mind and thinking about the people that really meant something to me, my grandmothers and these people. And I started pulling from those emotional spaces and wanting to honor those ancestors in that way. And then, you know, I started seeing myself and seeing just the spirituality in everybody, in everyday people. It's just so beautiful. And I just think that we don't see the image of God in one another. So I just started, you know, whenever I would see someone, I'd be like,
that sense of innocence.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to.
yeah, it's
also.
that. So I'll see somebody and I'd be like, oh wow, that's, you know, there's something about this person. I remember there was maybe it was last year or the year before, there was a few ladies, little collectors in here, and I was sitting here, I was like, wow, I see something in her, and I see something in her. I said, come on. Let me take a few pictures of y'all. I see something. And I just, organically, that happens,
sure.
right? And I said, I'm just gonna take your picture, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? And I drew them because there was that spirit there, and I saw something. And so I do that quite a bit. And you know, my work evolves as you know, my curiosity about different things go to different places. So now I'm starting to get interested in the iconography of Jesus and why it is the way that it is, and I'm kind of playing with that iconography. I'm playing with the Mary and Jesus iconography. That's sort of where I am now in my work. But yeah, it continues to evolve. Yeah.
I did want to mention, you know, we have through my studio an exhibition that Stanford Art Museum in Stamford, Connecticut, and this is a publication. You can see who's in the publication.
Oh boy, it's a great honor.
Curlee's been getting you into music.
That's a great honor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I never could.
I wanna-
I appreciate that.
I wanna show up,
Work.
yes.
They love it.
Yeah.
So it's going to travel to some more museums. But again,
Excellent.
it's about the work, and they recognize not just the talent, but the passion in it, and the imagination. And it's not just talent. To me, imagination is probably even more important than talent, because it's what you do with the talent.
Yeah, I can see that. Years ago when I was reviewing portfolios, I was looking at these portfolios where everything was perfect. I mean, vanishing point, everything was perfect. There was no imagination there.
That's
And
the
then I
key.
had this other group where they put an extra shadow in where there couldn't be a shadow based on the path of light, but the imagination was there. You know, how do you keep moving forward and combining? You know, how do you keep looking ahead as artists?
Well, for me, it's a critical choice. It's a choice of how do I represent my being in the world, that I exist, that I'm here, which I think is an accident. You know, to be honest with you, I mean, we're all accidents. Two male and female adult got together one evening, and we happened, didn't we? Whether it was our parents or not, it happened. You know, and if something happened that distracted them, or some event happened, then you wouldn't be here. It's all biology and accident from my perspective. But what do we do with the accident is the key for me, and I don't think of that as negative at all. It's what we do with it. So it's been very important to me to make this experience and this reality meaningful. So I get up every day and I try to make, when I make work, I try to make the most meaningful work I can make. Not just meaningful to the public, meaningful to myself. And if I make it meaningful to me, it, I believe, will transcend me and tap into the meanings of others. So a lot of my work has to do with the anxiety of this. I'll give you an example. I'm working on multiple pieces right now, but there's one particular piece I'm working on that is a large woodcut. It is the second part of a series, and the title of the series is The Violence of the Empire. So this particular piece has a group of policemen, and this just to scale. Three policemen in the foreground, a horse with a policeman on top of it with a club. And that is cut out as a standalone woodcut. And then I do watercolors of the images that are facing it. So that means that the woodcut is static, it stays the same, but the imagery that I'm placing into context and maybe into tension with it changes. So for example, I have a group of protesters, a young black female raising her hand at the police officer. But in the background is an illustration of Goya's May 3rd from 1808. Now Goya's May 3rd of May 3rd of 1808 was a painting, a very famous painting of the Napoleonic forces murdering and shooting innocent civilians in Spain. So the point I'm trying to make with this image that you will recognize as contemporary with the police officers and the horses, because we've seen those, and the images that's in concert with them, it's a diptych, always a diptych, will be other images, but we'll place them into a historical context. Because I'm saying it is happening, it keeps happening.
Wow.
It keeps happening on, over and over and over. Kent State. I could just go, I mean, come on. It keeps happening over and over. The powers that be and the violence of the empire continues. So now who is interested in this? Yeah, put it in the show.
Yeah,
Who's
well, I'm
interested
doing
in it?
something. I'm saying
Yeah.
wow because I'm doing something very similar.
So I had the first piece is a police officer pushing back at a woman that the title of it is "Shut the Fuck Up." The sister screaming that to the police officer. And this was in a show in Misericordia University. And they asked me about my work, but they really wanted to know about this piece because it's large. And when I told them the title of it, they were struck by it. But they understood what I was saying, is that we as citizens and as civilians are being confronted by a level of violence, and they don't care whether you are a person of color any longer. You can be white, and you are still a victim of violence. They can care less because it's about power. And in my work, if I do this in a body of work, and I have all these other things that are in the show, is to say to the audience, be mindful of what's happening. Nobody will buy it. I don't expect them to buy it and take it home with them, but be mindful of what's happening. So the role of artist is also to announce. So I'm done talking. I'm out of my wine.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.